Join us now for Contact with Cheryl McKenzie.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. So whether it's the air we breathe, the water we drink, or the land that grows the food that sustains all of life, everything is at risk if we don't rise to meet the challenge of saving this planet. Our show tonight is all about the environment, and we'll be updating you on the news that's emerging almost as fast as the pollution that's driving it. We want to hear from you on what the big environmental concerns are in your area. Give us a call right now with your thoughts at 1-877-647-2786, or you can email us at contact@aptn.ca. Joining me in the studio is Clayton Thomas Muller. He's Cree from Puckatawagan in northern Manitoba. Clayton works with the Indigenous Environmental Network. He's their representative for the Canadian Indigenous Tar Sands Campaign. He's an activist for environmental justice. Also in studio is Tom Goldtooth. Tom is Dene and Dakota, and he is the executive director of the Indigenous Environmental Network based in Bemidji, Minnesota, USA. Tom oversees policy work around environmental protection, environmental justice. Tom co-produced an award-winning documentary film, Drumbeat for Mother Earth, which details the effects of bioaccumulative chemicals on Indigenous peoples. We also have George Piotras on camera in our studio in Edmonton, Alberta. George is a member of the Mikisew Cree Nation and served as chief from 1999 to 2002. While he was chief, George initiated the court battle against the federal government for lack of consultation concerning Mikisew traditional lands. It led to the unanimous Supreme Court of Canada decision that is cited as a precedent-setting case and a standard for government consultation with First Nation. George is now Mikisew's consultation coordinator of government and industry relations. Welcome to the show, George.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Now, the news that emerged this week is about the researchers that found elevated cancer rates in your community. Tell us why you pushed so hard to have this cancer study done.
Well, I think for many, many years, the community residents of Fort Chipewyan who live directly downstream from all the tar sands activity have recognized and observed more than disproportionate levels of rare cancers, or just higher levels of cancers that should be normal in a community our size of 1,200 people. So we forced the government in 2002 to do a study to assess the number of cancers, people wanting to know the true situation of cancers in our community. That was done. The cancer came out, and as we expected, the government would conclude that there was no higher levels of cancers in our community. That was not acceptable to the community of Fort Chipewyan, and the community continued to impress on the government that, you know, things are not normal here. People are getting diagnosed with cancers, sometimes rare cancers, too regularly. And so we forced the government once again to do the second study, and the second study did conclude that there was not only rare cancers, two cases of rare cancers in our community, but there's 3 other different types of higher level cancer rates in Fort Chipewyan.
So what are you going to do with the information from the study?
Well, I think, first of all, the study really does vindicate the residents and the leadership of the community who for many, many years have been saying this. And it should also vindicate Dr. John O'Connor, who is our family physician or GP in Fort Chipewyan for many years, and the doctor who went public with the press about the rare cancers in Fort Chipewyan almost 3 years ago now. So our first course of action is, of course, to do a very thorough analysis of the study. We're having experts from various professions, especially the medical profession, and epidemiologists also, to look at the study and to give us their feedback so we could do our own interpretations of not only the numbers and the statistics in the report, but also interpretations of different situations. As an example, we're already noticing that we can characterize or deduct from the study that there are cluster cancers in Fort Chipewyan. So we're going to do a much more thorough study or a thorough analysis, and once that's done, that will be our motivation to look at where do we go from here.
What do you make of the fact that a senior official with Alberta Health Services say that the higher number of cancer rates are not necessarily because of the environment?
Well, it's a typical government of Alberta response. Every study, every research, every analysis, every data sets that we assess suggests that there are elevated levels, in this case, of cancer. Other assessments that we've done in the community of water and sediment do conclude that there are higher levels of arsenic and mercury and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, much more higher where we live. And it has been a typical response from government to dismiss it. So we're not surprised that the Minister of Health, and I suspect the government of Alberta, their official position on this is that, maybe look at our lifestyle, other issues, as opposed to maybe looking at the environment as the source.
Let's talk about the water now. How do you see the water being affected by these tar sands?
Well, the water is probably one of our greatest issues and concerns. We do know that our drinking water intake comes directly from Lake Athabasca. Much of the water in Lake Athabasca is from the Athabasca River, which runs directly through the tar sands. We've had many issues in the past 10, 20 years about the water quality, but also the water quantity. We do know that oil sands production requires a lot of water withdrawal from the Athabasca River. But what's more pressing for us is the water quality, because we do know that tar sands operators do have licenses, approvals from the Alberta government to actually discharge every day out of the year effluent like oil and grease and treated sewage. And sometimes, and more often than not recently, there has been exceedances of oil and grease effluent discharged into the Athabasca River. And some years...
I just want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly. You're saying that the government of Alberta is licensing companies to dump this toxic soup into the Athabasca River. Is that what you're saying?
You're not hearing me incorrectly. You're hearing me quite right. And when the people of the community were made aware of this by Alberta Environment in the last year, where they forced the government to come to the community and answer questions, people were pretty upset. One person said, Alberta government, by virtue of doing that, you're actually licensing tar sands operators to kill us, because there has been incidences of spills of oil and grease where you could detect visibly with the eye oily slick on Lake Athabasca, which is about 250 kilometers away.
Clayton, if I could ask you to just give us your first-hand knowledge, I guess, about what the government is doing to control these tailings ponds and the leakage from them.
Well, by government, I assume you're referring to the provincial government of Alberta, because up to this point, the federal government has been virtually uninvolved and federal mechanisms have yet to be invoked, although with the recent lawsuit being brought on by a citizen in Alberta and being supported by various ENGOs, Syncrude is actually having some charges laid to them as a result of the death of the 500 ducks, which garnered a lot of national and international media attention. I mean, what the listeners and viewers have to really understand is that these tailings ponds and, the amount of water required to produce tar sands oil is just immense. You can see these tailings ponds from outer space. In some instances, they're 15 kilometers across. A recent report from Environmental Defense Canada highlighted the fact that thousands and thousands of liters of affluent from these tailings ponds that's contaminated with heavy metals, arsenic, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which is basically oil, are leaching not only into the Athabasca River, but also into the entire region's groundwater sources. There hasn't been an analysis on the impact of these toxic lakes that you can see from the space station and what kind of impact that has on the underground water sources, never mind the surface water. And so when you take a look at, who lives along the Athabasca River Basin, who subsists, it's of course our indigenous peoples. It's Dene, Cree, and Métis peoples that have, utilized that waterway for time immemorial. And of course, as indigenous peoples, we have a sacred relationship to our lands. We have a strong trapline culture that many of our people continue to practice to this day, and definitely in the region of the Athabasca Delta. And so with that kind of practice where you have people eating the fish, where you have people hunting the moose, eating the muskrat, and trapping other animals, hunting the ducks and geese,
they'll be the most directly affected as soon as a spill.
They're the most disproportionately...
Those licensed spills are in the river.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a process of bioaccumulation that occurs that is disproportionate to the rest of the Alberta public because of our sacred relationship.
Tom, how concerned do you think Americans are that they're buying this dirty oil from Canada?
Yeah, that's a good question, because right now most Americans don't even know what's going on with this situation. There's complete media blackout. When we look at a lot of the media in the States, a lot of them are owned by transnational corporations that related to mineral extraction, oil, petroleum industry. In fact, our network is part of a big coalition called the Tar Sands Group of environmental non-governmental organizations where we're working together to strategize on how we could educate Americans. And recently we formed a campaign, since Obama's coming up here to Canada shortly here, and it's Obama to Canada campaign.
And of course, the Harper government is putting a lot of pressure on President Obama to buy up some of that oil coming from the tar sands.
Oh, definitely. Part of the big energy plan here is that all the oil that's going to be coming out of the tar sands, 80% of the crude oil is going to be piped to feed a U.S. energy addiction, at the expense of our First Nation peoples up there. So it's a serious human rights issue that we got here. And, there should be, governmental structures that we can trust, that can make sure that the environment is being protected. And in this situation, that's not there.
All right, we have Ron Plain on the line from Sarnia, Ontario. He's Anishinaabe from the Aamjiwnaang First Nation in Ontario. Ron is the Aboriginal Program Manager for Environmental Defense based in Toronto. Welcome to the show, Ron.
Thank you.
Now, the Environmental Defense did a report called 11 million liters a day, the tar sands leaking legacy. Can you tell us a little more about that report?
Well, that report, which has lately been picking up some steam in the Alberta government, they've been on a denial fast track with it, but when they've questioned the numbers that we've released inside that report, they don't tell people that it's their numbers, it's industry's numbers and government's numbers that we've reported. And
you're talking about this 11 million liters a day that's leaking out of the tar sands in Alberta. Is that what that refers to?
Yes, yes.
That's an astronomical amount. I can't. It's hard to picture how much leakage that is.
Yeah, the graphic that we put it to it is the Rogers Centre in Toronto. Everybody can picture the size of that, and that's what's being filled every day.
Oh my goodness, that's so much. And I see here in 2007, the liters per hour leaked, according to your organization, Environmental Defense. It's almost 500,000 liters an hour. This just seems so hard to believe that all that toxic water is leaching into the environment.
Well, and what's hard to believe is the people, the regulators, are saying that this is okay, that this is not harmful to the people that live along the Athabasca or to the wildlife that lives there as well. Clayton nailed it pretty solidly there in saying that we have a sacred relationship to that piece of the land, and we're watching it deteriorate in front of our eyes in this generation.
All right, we have to take a short break right now. When we come back, we'll talk about the pollution you can't always see and what one community is doing about it. Stay with us.
Take part in tonight's show. Email contact@aptn.ca or call toll-free 1-877-647-2786.
Wardrobe provided by celebrating our elders, inspiring our youth. Share in the journey. APTN, Aboriginal Peoples Television Network.
Serious sore throat sufferers know Cepacol stops sore throat pain seriously fast.
I do!
In lozenge or spray, Cepacol stops pain fast.
Maytag introduces the new Performance Series washer and dryer, featuring Maytag commercial technology. With commercial-grade components like heavy-duty belts and bearings, plus a high-gauge steel wash basket, the new Performance Series washer and dryer are built strong to last long.
Tell me about it.
Incoming! Captain Jake running.
Captain Jake, come to the refueling station.
Kraft Singles, made with a goodness of milk, creamy, delicious, and a source of calcium, so you're doing good for their bodies and imaginations.
Yes, just what I needed.
Kraft Singles, for growing bodies and smiling faces, and planet-saving kids everywhere.
What better way to bring people together than for a celebration?
So join Tina Keeper and myself, Adam Beach, as we honor some of our most accomplished First Nation, Inuit, and Métis achievers at the 60th Annual National Aboriginal Achievement Awards.
Make sure to come down and see us March 6th at the Centennial Concert Hall, downtown Winnipeg.
Buy your tickets now at naf.ca.
I should really eat something.
Relax with a green tea and trail mix cookie from Tim Hortons.
Good idea.
Beware of approaching mail cart.
Huh?
Enjoy a green tea with our new trail mix cookie, just $1.99. Always a great value.
Welcome back to Contact's Environmental Update. Over the years, industrial pollution in Sarnia, Ontario has been making news. It's home to 52 of the world's largest chemical companies. It surrounds the homes of Aboriginal people living on the Aamjiwnaang First Nation. The First Nation is surrounded by so much industrial pollution that they have dubbed it Chemical Valley. The community members of Aamjiwnaang want to see the federal government enforce greater safety standards for industry and reduced emissions. Ron Plain, of course, was at the center of it all. Ron, can you tell us first about how the community of Aamjiwnaang was testing its own air?
Yeah, we hooked up with an organization out of California called Global Community Monitor. And what they did is they taught us how to do something called the Bucket Brigade. And with the Bucket Brigade, you can buy everything you need to test your own air at your local hardware store. And what we needed to find was a laboratory that would accept those tests as viable, and we found that.
Is it easy to find a lab that you trust to test your samples?
Actually, we entrusted the Global Community Monitor staff to recommend us a lab. That's the lab that they would be using.
Is there a particular reason why it might be difficult to find a lab who could do these tests for you?
Well, there's a few reasons. The largest reason is most of the labs are under contract to government and industry, and even into the academic institutions, the universities and what have you. They all have ties into that.
Interesting. So you have to kind of shop around for a lab to get your samples tested. What was the reaction to the findings when they came back from the air samples?
It was the reactions were shock because when the tests were taken, they were going out to take baseline tests on a day when we thought it was calm, when there was no spills or no incidences within Chemical Valley. And the chemicals they found shocked everybody.
What kind of are they linked to any kind of disease? These chemicals that are in the air?
Yeah, there was 4 main ones that were of concern, and they're known carcinogens, known developmental toxicants, known reproductive toxicants, all of the impacts that we see amongst our community. And they're suspected on a host of other respiratory, skin, neurotoxin, immunotoxins. So these are the nasty of the nastiest chemicals.
So now what's the story today with the new air monitoring station in Aamjiwnaang?
The new air monitoring station in Aamjiwnaang was a really big step and a really big show for the hard work of the Aamjiwnaang Environment Committee. What it does is it streams the data across the desk of the environmental officer here in Aamjiwnaang instead of going through industry and then to us. So it's a boost to us. We can all see the hard work is resulting in something.
So what's the purpose of having it?
Well, the Ministry of the Environment here in Ontario only had a couple of air monitoring stations, and they were located nowhere near Chemical Valley. So there was nothing located inside of the valley to give people an accurate reading of what was going on day to day.
So what's happening with the data now?
Well, the data comes into our environmental officer. She then gets to see what's happening with it, send it out to be analyzed, and get back reports on what's happening day to day.
And then who pays for all this?
The Ministry of the Environment, actually.
Oh, yeah? Are you confident with the decisions that are being made after seeing these results?
Am I confident in the decisions that are being made to protect our health? Absolutely not. What we're seeing inside of Chemical Valley now as the regulations tighten a little bit is panic, and they're all trying to grasp a hold of these loopholes that I hope get closed soon. And to be very honest, the shows that you're putting on here are going to show people that there isn't a safety net. The government doesn't have their back, and they have to take actions to protect themselves, as George has, as I have, as Clayton continues to do throughout Canada.
So are the people of Aamjiwnaang, like this has been a long-standing issue, and there's been so much industry developing around the Aamjiwnaang First Nation. Are the people just expected to live with this?
Yeah, we're expected to live with it, and we're expected to rest with the fact that the government is looking out for our best interests. This is what we're supposed to believe.
What about curbing emissions? Is there anything, do you see any action there?
Not yet. We have started a program here in Sarnia-Lambton, which is the county that surrounds Aamjiwnaang, called the Good Neighbor Campaign through my office, and we're going to be targeting one of the companies inside of Chemical Valley and using their data, their track record, to educate the community and demand better of the company.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next. What would you like to see happen now that you're not confident that anything is going to happen? What do you want to happen?
Well, we're using a lot of different methods, and what I'm hoping to do is the same thing I was hoping to do 5 years ago, 7 years ago, And that's to get industry to use the best available technologies. There's no reason for them to be dumping anything into the air or into the water. They have the technology now to reduce their emissions by 90%, and the government doesn't push them to use it. So we're working in Ottawa, we're working in Queen's Park, and we're working locally to try to get the industry to use the best available technology.
Clayton, if I could ask you for your opinion on what do you think is holding government back if they can curb emissions 80 to 90%?
Well, first of all, I think it's a case-by-case scenario in terms of curbing emissions. You know, the tar sands is its own beast, and at the current rate of expansion, some of there's a lot of false solutions that are being pushed, a lot of panaceas that absolutely will not work. You know, we're seeing industry in the province of Alberta grasp onto the carbon capture and storage pipe dream when there is no existing technology. You know, and the theoretical technology that exists is only applies to, you know, coal technologies in the United States at source at coal burners. And so to try and apply some of these pipe dream scenarios to the tar sands, you know, Canada's biggest source of greenhouse gases, is just absolute rhetoric and an attempt to delay and dupe the public out of, you know, Canada actually being able to meet its Kyoto targets, you know. And of course, I think the reality of it is that, you know, there needs to be more efforts, especially in our Native communities and our First Nations, more community monitoring efforts that both keep track of greenhouse gas emissions and other toxics that are coming out of big emitters at source, so that we can begin to develop our own capacity, because I think that community monitoring is an essential part of sovereignty. You know, and I think that as sovereign entities, as First Nations, you know, we need to continue to develop our own capacity to do our own environmental monitoring, because as we see in the province of Alberta, as we see in Ron's territory, in Canada's Cancer Alley, we can't rely on the provincial government who has jurisdiction in these areas to, you know, oversee our affairs, because they're just not doing a good job. And the federal government has been absent up to this point. So we absolutely need to continue to push forward, you know, for the federal government and the provincial governments to respect our unique delegated authority as First Nations, as sovereign entities, and to, you know, meet their trust obligation to us to provide resources so that we can do our own environmental monitoring, so that we can hold these corporations and the governments of the day that these corporations are manipulating for corporate profit over human and ecological health accountable.
All right, we have a caller on the line from Fort McMurray. We have Alan on the line. Alan, what's your big environmental concern, or what would you like to add to our discussion? Hello, Alan.
Hello.
Yes.
One of the biggest things that I have concern about is about the issue about the 20-year strategy plan that for the oil sands sector in this region. As well, I'm aware of it. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, the Oil Sands Secretary, Deputy Minister, is going to be here to announce the 20-year strategy plan. And as being the chief for the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation now, you know, it gives me some great concern about the issues that are being played out, because I was only notified of this issue this morning. And it just goes to show, you know, how the Alberta government views of engaging First Nations into political discussions around the tar sands, because this is one of the reasons why we've taken them for a judicial review, failing to consult with us in regards how to deal with environmental issues.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your call. George, is there something that you would like to add? Is this the position your First Nation is in, having to deal with a 20-year strategic plan with only 1 day's notice?
Yeah, exactly. That was
Oh, sorry, George. I believe we lost George's audio. But after the break, we move from the water and air to the land and the food that sustains us. Please stay with us.
Take part in tonight's show. Email contact@aptn.ca or call toll-free 1-877-647-2786.
Captain Jake, come to the refueling station.
Kraft singles made with the goodness of milk, creamy, delicious, and a source of calcium, so you're doing good for their bodies and imaginations.
Yes, just what I needed.
Kraft singles for growing bodies and smiling faces and planet-saving kids everywhere.
Millionaire Life is back, and the question on everyone's mind is, what would you do with $1 million a year for 25 years?
In the first year, a splurge on a really big
diamonds.
boat.
Hurry in by February 14th to get in on early bird prizing.
Serious sore throat sufferers know Cepacol stops sore throat pain seriously fast.
I do!
In lozenge or spray, Cepacol stops pain fast.
When you need more APTN, go online to aptn.ca for live webcasts, archived episodes of Contact. There's lots of fun for kids. Plus, up-to-date schedule information about all APTN shows, specials, documentaries, and movies, as well as info about APTN in high definition. And shop for APTN athletic gear and other cool APTN merchandise. Check out aptn.ca. Get more today.
Welcome back to Contact. We want to get back to Mr. George Piotras. The chief earlier commented on a 20-year strategy plan and only having one day to review it and to have a response. What do you make of that?
Well, yeah, that was Chief Alan Adam, by the way, of the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation, other Fort Chippewa, who called. What I understand of the report that's going to be released tomorrow is a 20-year strategy on the oil sands by the Alberta government. I suspect as a result of the multi-stakeholder consultations that they conducted in the last year and a half. The Mikisew did formally respond in a written submission to the government of Alberta with many of our recommendations, including calling for a moratorium on any new oil sands projects, but also development of new, better technology, and so on and so forth. I think we submitted about 8 recommendations. So I believe, and of course not knowing a lot about what's going to be released tomorrow and what it is the culmination of, I suspect that it is the work of that multi-stakeholder consultations. So it'll be interesting to see what of any of our submissions that were taken into account that would or wouldn't be in the report. I suspect much of it won't be in the report.
We'll be watching for that, be on APTN National News, no doubt. Ron, the report that we talked about earlier, that 11 $11 million liters a year. Calls on the federal Canadian government to enforce the Federal Fisheries Act to end the leakage problem in the tar sands with those ponds. How would enforcing the Federal Fisheries Act help?
The Federal Fisheries Act is actually the strongest environmental legislation in Canada. And what it would do to help out would be to enforce a part of that says it's illegal to dump into a water system any toxic that would be deleterious to a fish, that would kill a fish. And it doesn't take somebody with a chemical degree to figure out that oil and grease would kill a fish. So by insisting that that legislation be enforced would be to put the strength of the federal government against the tar sands companies.
George, your First Nation has a direct link, and we have this picture that you sent me earlier this year. It's some kids found a two-jawed fish. That's a goldeye we're looking at. It has one mouth and then another jaw underneath. How do you figure that happened, George?
Well, again, our first suspicion would be that it was caused by contamination. The mutation in the fish was caused by contaminants in the Athabasca River. The fish coincidentally appeared in Fort Chipewyan, where the kids found it on August 17th, was the beginning of the Keepers of the Water 3 conference, which was a significant conference for the region, for the whole Mackenzie Basin. So to us, I mean, the double-jawed fish is just one part of the problem. One part of the problem that's being that's attributable to many of the contamination or pollutants, not only in the air but in the water and on the land, coming likely from the tar sands. So it's significant. I mean, we're very concerned, and I think what the cancer study last Friday really confirms for us is the fact that we need to be much more vigilant. We need to be much more systematic and methodical in the way we collect any unusual, whether they're oil slick ducks that we find from duck hunters, or double-jawed fish, or blisters on fish, or tumors on fish, or unusual looking body parts in not only fish but birds and big game that we have heard many times that have been observed by hunters and trappers and residents of Fort Chipewyan. So yeah, it's a pretty critical time for us right now.
All right, we have a caller on the line. It's Brady calling from British Columbia. Brady, what's your environmental concern?
Well, we have a number of issues up here in northeastern BC. We as well as the Alberta First Nations are surrounded by flaring gas wells. We have communities here that are completely surrounded with active oil and gas wells flaring. And it just goes to show you that the government of Canada as well as the provincial governments do not recognize the First Nations. It's just quite sad that 300 birds have to draw the attention of the international community when our people have been fighting with death rates, abnormal cancer rates, high increases in asthma, but it took 300 birds to bring the attention to the international community. My next concern is with the participation of our communities involved with the oil and gas industry, as well as the mining industry, by participating in the consultation process and being involved in the construction of some of these mine sites and these buying drilling rigs. We are adding to the problem as well. There's a bunch of other other issues that in the northeastern BC that are very similar to what you have going on in Alberta.
All right. Thank you very much for your call, Brady. Tom, maybe I could ask you for your thoughts on balancing environmental and economical concerns.
Well, definitely that's one of the challenges that not only we have as First Nations peoples, but also that's a serious issue within dominant society. You know, right now in the United States, we're seeing the collapse of the economic system, or the transformation of an economic system that basically has not been sustainable. You know, in our work with First Nations and American Indian, Alaska Native peoples, you know, a lot of communities like this, you know, are stepping up and saying that, you know, that this has to stop, that our people are literally dying out there. And, you know, we shouldn't have to be in a situation where we have to really dig down deep and find resources, you know, and some, you know, and a lot of support just to ascertain whether or not some form of development is killing our people, when it's obvious on the ground as you go there that these various type of industrial developments are killing our people. You know, throughout Canada, you know, it's just so alarming to me that and a lot of the policies coming out of Canada from all levels of government, that actually First Nations are sacrifice zones, whether it's energy policy, you know, whether it's lack of effective climate policy, toxics policies, you know, from the whole Cancer Valley that Ron was talking about, and the whole corridor of the Eastern Great Lakes, which is a cancer alley in itself. You know, just all these toxic chemicals, and you know, and we have new initiatives now on both sides of the border, to where there's toxic body burden studies, to where, you know, our people, you know, our mothers, our grandmothers, and are finding that, you know, there's toxic chemicals in our body that's being passed on to our children. You know, we should not be in that situation. We should have a government that's responsive. We have Canada that resisted, along with the United States, from supporting the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. So there's something here that we really need to deal with. You know, this is an environmental injustice issue, but it also is a human rights issue, and it's a treaty rights, Aboriginal rights and title issue.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about what you can do, and our guests share their final thoughts. Stay tuned to Contact.
I'm Holly Bernier.
And I'm Todd Lamoran. Tune into our new one-hour APTN National News.
Get more in-depth coverage of the latest issues.
Fearing for the life of his partner, he jumped out and over the roof of the cruiser trained his gun at Campbell's Head.
More stories about the arts and entertainment.
But what about here? What about here in Canada?
As well as sports, politics, and human interest.
Join our team for APTN National News coverage.
Every Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern on APTN.
Maintenant, nous avons des programmes plus efficaces dans notre communauté.
Ma fille obtient de l'aide pour son diabète.
Nous recueillons des informations sur notre santé. Nous préparons des arguments pour de meilleurs soins de santé. Alors, merci.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci d'avoir rempli notre questionnaire sur l'ARS.
I should really eat something.
Relax with a green tea and trail mix cookie from Tim Hortons.
Good idea.
Beware of approaching mail cart.
Huh?
Enjoy a green tea with our new trail mix cookie, just $1.99. Always a great value.
It feels like a kiss, makes a body strong, climbing through the window pane. Good morning, sun. I will be your Mona Lisa, so shine on. Shine on your golden light.
Enjoy a healthy snack with 100% whole grain Triscuit crackers. Weave goodness into your life.
A bad sore throat. You want fast relief. The hospital-trusted relief of Cepacol lozenges now has even more medicine. Effective relief trusted by hospitals.
The pain is gone.
Hospital-trusted Cepacol. Fast relief for sore throat pain.
What better way to bring people together than for a celebration?
So join Tina Keeper and myself, Adam Beach, as we honor some of our most accomplished First Nation, Inuit, and Métis achievers at the 16th Annual National Aboriginal Achievement Awards.
Make sure to come down and see us March 6th at the Centennial Concert Hall, downtown Winnipeg.
Buy your tickets now at naf.ca.
And we're back with our final segment of our environmental update. Ron Plain, we're getting close to the end of the program. I want to ask you, what message would you like to leave with our national audience tonight?
The message is to look outside the box. Don't trust the consultants that knock on your door that also represent industry. Do a little bit of research. Ask the people that are on this show. Find people who can help you, who are unbiased and who do not want to profit from it, but to help.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time tonight, Ron, joining us from Ontario. We're going to go to a call right now. We have Carol on the line from British Columbia. Carol, what would you like to add?
Hi. I wanted to talk about the fish hatcheries. And I'm proud to say that our Gitxsan Nation said no to it. But the thing that concerns me is the lower mainland of BC and how the fish hatcheries are affecting our fish.
Yes?
Oh, it's pretty hard to hear because it kind of goes quiet on this side.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you're concerned about the fish hatcheries and what's happening in the lower mainland?
Yeah, we had a meeting up here a year ago, and a lot of our elders spoke about the destruction of our streams and our rivers, and why do they have to go as far as getting these fish hatcheries, and it was a quick fix, and that as we speak as First Nation people, we should band together and stick with it instead of walking away from it and allowing the government to take control and allowing, just saying that these are jobs. These are not jobs. These are our future. These are our children. And the way our Gitxsan Nation look at it is that's what we honor. And I found it pretty sad to see there was fish hatcheries down the lower mainland in Vancouver. And the other thing that they were talking about, like the oil and the grease, the defects, they're finding in our fish there's lice and parasites and defects, etc. And it's really sad to see, and it's really scary to see.
All right. Thank you very much for your call. Clayton, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, just a comment on, of course, our many Indigenous nations that, call the Pacific Rim home, the salmon people, of that land. Greetings to all of you. And I think that the threat of these genetically modified, fish farms, they're basically big toxic pools that float out of these farms and contaminate the actual wild salmon that have to swim by these things on their way up to their spawning beds, and the salmon get infested with, sea lice and all kinds of disease as a result. And there's also escaped fish, which contaminates the very genetics of this sacred food source. I think another thing that, our brothers and sisters in British Columbia have to be concerned about is the Gateway Initiative, which is, a massive undertaking which represents port expansions in Prince Rupert, in Kitimat, in Vancouver, in Horseshoe Bay, and as well as a large pipeline, the Gateway Pipeline, which will be piping tar sands crude directly across northern British Columbia to the port of Kitimat, where they want to open up the moratorium on oil tanker traffic on the west coast of Canada so that tar sands crude can be shipped direct from Kitimat down to the refineries in California and in Washington state. This is a significant threat to the salmon way of life that our brothers and sisters in BC must be concerned about, and it impacts their relations through the interior, the carrier people, of course our brothers and sisters from, you know, the northeastern corner of British Columbia, where they've seen their land absolutely devastated by natural gas production, which unfortunately is represented by sour gas production. You know, there's consistent evacuations in the First Nations up around Fort St. John, Blueberry First Nation, Dogrip, you know, as a result of H2S contaminating their communities from all of the development. And where is this gas going? It's going to power up the tar sands. And so there is incredible overlays here and justification for our Native people to talk about our environmental concerns because of the fact that, you know, they are not isolated incidences. You know, there is environmental racism in Canada. It is alive and well, and it is very much determined in how Canada sets its economic development policies. First Nations are sacrificed at the altar of irresponsible economic development in this country.
All right, we have another caller on the line. It's Douglas calling from British Columbia. Douglas, what would you like to add?
Yes, well, I'd like to add what first and foremost, you guys are doing a good job about educate us First Nation at large, and we have to do more, and do more because the future of the young ones are at stake. From health to everything. And like what the past callers, you know, hit their comments right nail on the head. To, you know, we can say this, say that to the government of Canada, but it boils down to two things. Talk and talk, that's one. And two is go direct action. And maybe one of the ways to doing it is 2010. 2010 and lobby international hard.
You're
and
talking
like
about the Winter Olympics?
Says, once you start, we cannot give up. And so that's the two. And three is that capitalism isn't working. And I think basically we all know. You know, all the issues and health concerns, everything. And so I think that's something we got to start a movement. And basically we have cancers, health issues, and maybe we can start a cancers in Canada. You know, right? And lobby hard and hopefully, you know, I'm making sense.
Yes.
But that's, you know, I wanted to comment on that.
Okay.
And all in all, and you guys are doing a great job, and keep it up and start voicing our concern.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your call, Douglas. George, how do you feel about your work when you get up in the morning? Do you feel like you're really getting somewhere?
Well, some days it's impossible to gauge. I think it's what motivates me to get up in the morning, though, is the injustice that I see that's being inflicted onto our people, and the gross de facto extinguishment of our treaty rights. I mean, that's front and center of what's going on. There's been no consultation. Many of the projects that were approved by the Alberta government, and sometimes the federal government is involved in a joint review panel in terms of determining these authorizations of these multi-billion-dollar projects. So there, again, on both levels of the Crown are, by virtue of approving with no consultation, are de facto extinguishing our treaty rights. So the previous caller mentioned some various ways of responding to these multi-billion-dollar projects. A legal recourse is always available to First Nations because we do have priority rights as priority users that flow from treaties that we've signed many years ago. So yeah, sometimes it's difficult waking up in the morning, but often that's what motivates me to get up is because I see the injustices.
What final thought would you like to leave us with tonight, George?
Well, I think exactly that is mounting pressure, whether formally communicating in writing as your First Nation leadership to the responsible authorities, to the responsible governments, and to industry who may also be trespassing or as well extinguishing our rights by virtue of their exploring on our lands and so on. Unfortunately, the government, both levels of the Crown, have been very, very ignorant in terms of responding to the First Nations issues, in terms of accommodating many of our concerns, which obviously forced me, when I was chief, to mobilize legal action against the federal government. Yeah, mounting pressure against both levels of the government in terms of their infractions, in terms of trespassing on treaty lands.
All right. Tom, what would you like to leave our audience with tonight?
Oh, geez, I just feel so inspired and empowered by just hearing, these representatives of these communities who have stepped up, who have taken action. And, our Indigenous Environmental Network was founded by people like this, from communities, not only from the United States and Canada and Alaska, but throughout the whole Western Hemisphere. And, definitely as First Nation people, we're not vulnerable. We got historical tribal memory, We got morality on our side. We're the original peoples of this Turtle Island. And so, we're digging down deep here, tapping that wisdom from those people who come from old school and tactics, but also, from experiencing what we're going through now economically throughout both the United States and Canada, looking at energy policy, climate policy, toxics, and all these regimes.
There's just so much we could go on and on. I'm sorry, but I have to stop you right there. I wish we could continue this discussion. Thank you to everyone for watching, and thank you to our guests. Next week on Contact, we're putting Canada's international image under a microscope. We'll be talking with Indigenous groups from Canada to see what they're doing in Geneva at the United Nations Human Rights Council. Does the image Canada presents to the UN jive with what's really going on? Tune in next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Good night, and thanks for helping us make contact.
Maytag introduces the new Performance Series washer and dryer, featuring Maytag commercial technology. With commercial-grade components like heavy-duty belts and bearings, plus a high-gauge steel wash basket, the new Performance Series washer and dryer are built strong to last long.
Tell me about it.
Feels like a kiss makes a body strong, climbing through the window pane. Good morning, sun. I will bring your Mona Lisa. So shine on, shine on your golden light.
Enjoy a healthy snack with 100% whole grain Triscuit crackers. Weave goodness into your life.
Sorry, guys. Sounds like this is going to take a while. Can I play?
Every year, thousands of boys and girls make new friends and discover a love for the game by playing Timbits hockey.
Hey, Sydney!
When you start with fun, it can last a lifetime.
So,
Did I miss anything? Timbits hockey. The first goal is having fun.
When I first started getting tattooed, I was a skinny little teenager, probably about 120 pounds. And, you know, when I'd be hanging out, I needed something to look fierce. And these tattoos helped me back then to look fierce because there wasn't much else to me. At this point in my life, I'm a father. I've got, you know, a teenage daughter and a 7-year-old daughter. And I don't need the intimidation factor so much anymore. So it's not important to me.
APTN, celebrating our culture.